I was raised in a small town in the 80s and 90s with no air conditioning. Back then, if you wanted to cool off during the summer, your options were limited. We had one public swimming pool that was filled with chloramine and smelled like chlorine. There was also an old indoor mall nearby with several empty storefronts. During the summer, they would turn the AC down so low in the mall that people would be flocking to it just to sit on benches and cool off. My friends and I would do the same. We'd head to the mall after school and stay there all afternoon playing video games, riding the escalators, and just relaxing until our parents picked us up around 6 or 7 p.m. One day, my friend told me about this creepy clown statue he saw in the back of one of the vacant stores. Apparently, it was new since the last time he'd been back there. He described it as being this tall, emaciated-looking clown holding a pair of scissors and a balloon animal. He said its eyes were soulless and stared directly at you. But he never went in there because he didn't want to wake the clown up. This instantly piqued my curiosity. I'd never seen this clown and I wanted to check it out for myself. So a few days later, after school, we headed to the back of the mall. As we got closer, I could see the clown through the grimy window. Its eyes were indeed soulless and scary, and it was holding a pair of scissors and what looked like a mangled poodle. The store itself was pitch black inside. The only light came from the flickering neon mall sign outside that cast an eerie glow on the clown's face. It looked like it had been carved out of stone and was so heavy that its arms and legs had sunk into the ground. My friend and I stood outside that store for almost an hour just watching the clown. We took turns trying to peer through the windows, but every time one of us would look, the other would grab our shoulders and pull us away. Neither of us dared to go inside. As the hours passed, we watched as the fluorescent lights flickered and died, plunging the mall into total darkness. We were the only ones left there. My friend and I started to make our way toward the front of the mall when we heard a blood-curdling scream in the distance. It sounded like nails on a chalkboard and lasted for what seemed like an eternity. My friend and I froze, unsure of what to do. Should we run? Hide? I don't know. Finally, we decided to just keep walking. We didn't want to stick around to find out what that sound was. We made it to the front of the mall without incident and headed home. The next day at school, we couldn't stop talking about the scream. Was it a person? An animal? What could it have been? None of our teachers knew anything about it, nor did any of them seem concerned. After school, my friend and I returned to the mall, hoping to find answers. We searched everywhere, but the only thing we found was a crumpled piece of paper near the back entrance. On it was written, "He hungers." My friend and I noped out of there. That weekend, I couldn't get the clown out of my head. I mean, what kind of sick person dressed up as a clown and stood in a vacant store all day? Did it actually come alive at night and feed on the terrified screams of mall rats? I convinced my mom to let me buy an air conditioning unit, so I could at least cool off in my room. That way, I wouldn't have to go to the mall anymore. I never told my mom why I wanted an air conditioner. She just thought I was finally growing out of my tomboy phase and wanted to be able to spend more time in my room alone. Little did she know that I was protecting her from the horrors of the mall. For years, I avoided going anywhere near that place. But eventually, I got curious again, and I wanted to see if the clown was still there. One summer day, my sister and I decided to check it out. We walked through the automatic doors, and it was just as creepy as I remembered. But the clown wasn't in the same spot. In fact, the whole store was completely empty. Disappointment washed over me, and I knew that whatever was haunting that store was no longer there. We began to explore the rest of the mall, and it was then that we realized we weren't alone. There were a few other teenagers wandering around, but that was it. Most of the stores were still vacant, and the ones that weren't had cheap, gaudy merchandise that nobody seemed to shop at. We stopped by the old GameStop and spent an hour playing video games. Then we headed to the food court to get some snacks. It was then that we noticed a group of boys sitting at one of the tables. They were laughing and drinking, and I could tell they were a year or two older than me. At first, I was happy to see that we weren't alone, but their laughter quickly turned to jeers. They stared at me and my sister and began making rude comments. My sister and I ignored them, but they kept it up. So we decided to leave. We walked past them. One of the guys grabbed my arm and pulled me back. I screamed and tried to pull away, but he wouldn't let go. "What do you want?" I asked, struggling to free myself from his grasp. He just smiled and replied, "Let's play a game." Before I could react, he pushed me toward the boys. They were all staring at me with malicious grins on their faces. "What game?" I asked, trying to sound brave. The guy who had grabbed me shrugged. "Truth or dare," he said. "Truth or dare." They all circled around me, and I knew I was in trouble. My mind raced, trying to figure out how I could escape this situation. But before I could come up with a plan, one of the boys stepped forward and asked me a question. "Do you want to see something really cool?" he asked. His tone was serious, and for a moment, I forgot that I was in danger. "What? What do you want to show me?" I replied. The boy hesitated. "I don't want the others to see," he whispered. "Can you follow me?" I knew I should say no, but something about his tone made me trust him. Maybe it was his earnest expression, or the fact that I desperately wanted to put this whole ordeal behind me. Whatever the reason, I agreed. We walked through the mall together, and soon the other boys were out of earshot. "Here," he said, stopping in front of a vacant storefront. "Look," he pointed to a dark corner. "Do you see it?" I strained to make out what he was pointing at, and that's when I saw it. A pair of scissors. They were lying on the ground, glinting in the dim light. I don't know what I was expecting, but this wasn't it. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice shaking. The boy nodded. "I found them earlier," he said. "I think they're from the clown." My heart skipped a beat. Could this be the same clown from before? Had it come back? The boy must have sensed my fear, because he quickly added, "Don't worry, it's gone now. I took care of it." Relief washed over me, and I managed a weak smile. "Thanks," I whispered. Then suddenly, the boy lunged at me. Ka screamed and tried to get away, but he was too fast. "Ka!" He grabbed my hair and pulled my head toward the scissors. "Here," he whispered, his voice dripping with malice. "You can play with my new toy." I struggled against him, but he was strong. He held me down and reached for the scissors. I closed my eyes, bracing for the pain, but it never came. Instead, I heard a thud and the sound of the boy yelping. I opened my eyes and saw that my sister had kicked him in the groin. "Get off her," she screamed, her face contorted with rage. The boy let go of me and stumbled back. My sister rushed to my side, her eyes searching mine for any sign of injury. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice shaking. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The boy who attacked me was on his knees, holding his crotch. The other guys were nowhere in sight. My sister helped me up, and we bolted out of the mall as fast as we could. I never saw that boy again, but sometimes I wonder what he's up to these days. And I can't help but feel grateful to my sister for saving me from a fate worse than death. Wow, this story is truly terrifying. It gives me the creeps thinking about how close the narrator was to a horrible fate. But luckily, her quick-thinking sister saved the day. If you liked this video, be sure to check out my channel for more terrifying stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.